Doing very well, Brother Brown. It's good to be back with you, my friend.
Great, great. Now, today we're going to be talking about the topic entrepreneurship, mentoring, and leadership development program. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself first, Dr. Green.
So, good morning to you again, Paul, and the audience. I am Robert Green. I'm a graduate of Benedict College in 1983. Left the college and went to military service, served as a military officer for another 20 plus years. And then following that assignment, I signed back on with the federal government, working for Manpower Reserve Affairs for the Department of the Army for another 18 or so years. And then recently started a company here in the beautiful area of Greensboro, North Carolina, RJRD Associate and Consultant. It's a human resource company, and my focus is on career development. And that's about it, Paul.
Okay. Why did you really want to get into that type of field, Dr. Green?
So my entire career, Paul, has centered around career development. Even during my time in the military service, much of the jobs and the assignments that I participated in had to do with development. I later earned a master's degree at North Carolina A&T in adult education. I really think that's where my interest picked up at that point, and I have been pursuing that ever since in terms of understanding development and then further helping folks to develop their career from the very beginning to the time of retirement and actually turning the workforce loose.
Now, you have a program. What's the concept of your program or your business?
My concept, Paul, is to change, help individuals who are interested in starting businesses. I want to help them change their mindset about developing, operating, and sustaining those businesses. As you know, most businesses, small businesses especially, close within the first 3 to 5 years. And so that for me has been a significant interest of mine. I first wanted to understand why that happened. And then from there, I started to work on turning that around. And this program does that. It does that, in my view, Paul, in a big way. I mean, we won't be talking a lot of new things in regards to starting and sustaining a business, except the mindset. And that mindset that I'm focused on is to encourage individuals to move beyond the 3 years. First, starting out, having a concept of why you might close the doors to your business, and then work out from there, helping entrepreneurs to know those barriers, work their way around those barriers, and keep those doors open in those small businesses so that we can continue to serve our community and abroad.
I know they talk a lot. I know I was taught that instead of giving people things like food or fish, they said you teach them how to fish so they can get their own fish. How does that work with your concept? Because you're basically telling, I know a lot of people talk about working in other people's company. So you're trying to teach them how to have their own business.
Paul, that's exactly right. Both you and I, when we arrived at Benedict back in the 80s, I think the general thinking among the community was to get us educated, get us into a career field, and get us to retirement. And while that, I still support that idea, I'm promoting a second option. And that option is to be an entrepreneur. As you do the work in someone else's company, you will not believe the gratitude that you might get from doing the work in your own company. and all the benefits that comes with that. You know, there's another old saying, Paul, that is a lot of pleasure in being your own boss.
Mm.
Being an entrepreneur is truly just that. You are the boss, you are the leader of that idea that you're putting forward in terms of a business plan for your community. And so I think your concept of teaching to fish and not give it away is a very important one. In that if I learn the entrepreneurship skill, I will never be out of a job potentially.
Right.
Now, especially when we peel back what's happened in the last 15, 20 years, uh, a lot of unemployment, a lot of people were told to go home. And most interesting, Paul, in the last 5 years, people who had secure jobs were either furloughed or in some cases told to go home. And then in the third scenario, by the time the company was ready to hire folks back, people left the career for a number of different reasons. And so, from that standpoint, being your own boss, understanding uh, a problem in the community that you want to solve, that you want to provide a resolution to, that people will be interested in enough to pay for it, is truly a business plan. It is your business. Once you develop that fully and operate in that environment in a very serious way, then I believe uh, you're on your way to what I like to call a uh, a recognized freedom, Paul, that really allow you to set the course for the rest of your life and beyond.
I know probably one of the biggest issues that people have with starting their business is fear. That fear that they're going to fail, that fear that they're not getting that income on a regular basis like they're used to getting when they were working in that company. What's your ideas on that?
That's a very real fear that you will have in the beginning and you'll have at the end of your process in terms of working and starting a business. The point that I would share on that, Paul, is this: that fear is real, is true, but you have a lot to do with how you turn that around. And it's the very thing that this course is going to help folks with. I started out talking about the emphasis of this course is to change the mindset. And that's a change of a mindset that you're describing, Paul, that has to take place if you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur. I started out when I left the college in '83. Uh, I went to the Army for the very reason that you're describing, because of that security. It was a known security. It was guaranteed as long as you did certain things, and that gave me and many other people a certain level of security that was convincing to me to accept that as a career. Now, the second part of that is once I got over that fear and understood a little better, one, you can do both things at one time. And I want to be very clear about that in the outset. I think before you transition from a career, you should do it in stages. When I started the first company, Paul, I actually started that company while I was working full time. And what that allowed me to do is to put some of that fear to bed while I figured out what it really took to run that new business that I was starting. So I think that's a very good point that you're making. In that, don't be. There's another scripture, Paul, that we're familiar with, not to be hasty about anything, but to be patient. And so, understanding your business is about patience. And when you disengage, there's a lot of variables that has to be understood and taken into consideration. And I'll give you an example. When I'm a single man and I'm starting out after college by myself, man or woman, there are less risks that I'm taking as opposed to a man starting out with a family. right? And so all along the way, you have to weigh those things and then determine at what point you either combine the work life, the normal work life that we're used to, with starting an entrepreneurship type business, right? That's one scenario. The other scenario, I mean, if I'm just kind of experimenting and starting out and I've got the resources and have the mindset and have the right problem, we'll talk more about that as we get into the schedule. And I've got the right solution, maybe the right time for me is right then. But, we're not going to try to elude folks into thinking that we have a canned answer for that. No, that's an evaluation that you will have to do to make sure, because Paul is kind of like this. You only know about me what I tell you, but I know a whole bunch about me and my situation. And so that's where I'm coming from that point. The person really has to make sure that they understand what it is they're trying to do, where they are in their lives, and what support system they have to help them in terms of starting a business. Um, Normally, you're not generating a whole bunch of funds when you first start. So your point about having to support yourself is a very real a real concern, and you would have to have that figure out. However, as we go through the course, we'll spend weeks talking about that and helping people to navigate that, so that you don't turn that off too quickly, because most time we turn that off so quickly, Paul. We never give ourselves an opportunity to start a business.
Now, that same dedication and commitment that you put into that company and the success of that business, why is it so important that you put it into your very own business?
Paul, now, truth and lending point here. I got to tell you, I put more time in my business than I ever put in anybody else's job, and that is because you are the head of that company. You're the guy that's generating the strategy for your company. Nobody will know that strategy better than you. Nobody will have to work that strategy harder than you. You will bring on partners and employees and people and to help you with your business, but no one will put in the time that's required of you as the CEO or the president of that company. It's just no match. And that's not to say that when I was working um, in the government sector and even private sector, it's not to say that I didn't put in 100%. But I'm saying, Paul, to really run a business proficiently, the owners sometimes put in 100 plus, and that's almost on a daily basis. But the difference is, there's a different kind of joy when I'm putting in 110% in my business as opposed to me going to work for a salary. And it's obvious because the payout is so much different. Salary, I'm capped at a certain amount. The more energy you put into your company, there's no limit to your salary and your earnings from that business.
And also, another benefit is that it's a generational benefit, whereas you can pass that business on to your kids or family members and so on, and keep the business running from generation to generation.
Absolutely, Paul. A big part of my dissertation is on succession planning, and that's the piece that you're bringing in. Uh, and I'm going to go right to it, Paul, because think about it. What good is it for me to start a business, and then when I'm ready to either leave the business, can't do it anymore for whatever reason, why should I close the door of that business? That should not be. And what it will take, though, that's not a thought that you can have on your way out the door. In this holistic planning, career development concept that I talk about, that starts from the very beginning of you planning from the very outset of how to turn that business over to whomever you select to be your successor. And that's important, Paul, because and I've got an example that most are familiar with. When Microsoft's CEO retired, his buddy, his co-partner in that organization, uh, tells a story on NBC News of how he was lost after his partner retired. After being with him for all these years, they developed the concept together. They worked that company and grew that company together. But the difference is, Paul, when we have certain jobs, there are certain things that you will understand that I just won't because I was not working in that area. And so we find ourselves, if we don't transition from the very beginning to where we're bringing on that successor from the very outset, there will be things when you leave that person just will not understand. There are things that are happening in businesses that are not taught in the universities. They're simply just not taught. And this is what the CEO for Microsoft explained after his departure and his experience, the new guy coming in, his partner coming in, the experience he had when his partner left. There's what we call TAC knowledge. This is knowledge that's not taught in the universities. It's not really written down anywhere. But there are things that you do in business, certain things that you do in business that you only know because you were doing it for X number of years. For an example, you know how to get around barriers that other people just don't know how to get around because they hadn't built those kind of relationships. And this is what the Microsoft CEOs are talking about. There are things that you have to transition with your successor beforehand, because after you're gone, it's just no way to recover that. And he talks about how much money Microsoft lost because of that. And so that's something we have to keep in mind in regard to succession planning and being very serious about turning this company over to the next generation. And Paul, you must have been reading the scriptures this morning because you've just elevated another scripture that talks about we have a responsibility to provide a couple of generations behind us.
Correct.
And I like you bringing that in, my friend, because that is one of my goals for what I do when I created my company. My mindset is I'm going to take it to a certain point, but after that, my goal is to turn it over 2 generations behind me. You know, you ever wonder why a company survives for 150, 200 years? It's because of what you and I are talking about right now. Yes. Somebody made it a priority to think about the generation behind them and how they will transition that company over to those individuals so that company lives well beyond any lifespan that you and I might experience.
That's a great point. Now we're going to talk about that program that you have developed for this community that's going to help them become their very own business owner. So let's talk a little about that program that you got coming up, Dr. Green. Look at that flyer.
Bring up the slide for me.
Go ahead, sir.
So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is that first line at the middle of the slide that's in red. Realizing your dreams require you to think differently. This is the focus of this course. And we're going to do that over an 8-week period. First of all, the course is all the classes are online. We will do in a Zoom session very similar to what we're doing here, Paul, on this conference call.
Okay.
And for 8 weeks, and I want to be very clear, the requirement for every week is only 2 hours per week. 2 hours per week. Now, I usually don't set those hours until I've got the roster for the class because I'm going to survey the participants. And together we're going to determine, at what time we start. Is it going to be 6 p.m. in the afternoon? Is it going to be 7 p.m.? Will it be 5 p.m.? Will it be Monday, Tuesday, Saturday? Now, the reason that's important, Paul, is because I realize with this course, I'm working with a mature group of individuals, people that are probably working full-time jobs, some people that are not even working anymore. And then we may have some college students that are interested in starting their businesses. So I want to be very flexible with that hour based on the participant in the class, and we'll select the 2 hours for each week. Now it'll be consistent, obviously. Once we select, if it's going to be from 6 to 8, then throughout the course we're going to do it every day, whatever day we select. For an example, we may select Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m., 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Then it will be that time every week for 8 weeks. Now, the curricula, I can't take credit alone. The curricula is owned by Eli. Now, I'm a facilitator for Eli, as you see on the right portion of that slide there. I'm an Eli certified facilitator. So this curricula has really been being built over the last 30 plus years through the Eli Foundation studies with world-renowned economists, people that study the work environment and the workforce for a living. So over 30 years, they put this curriculum together. And what drew me to it, Paul, is simply what we're talking about. When I saw this mindset of going from, the intimidation of starting a business, the other thing that comes to mind is people are worried about the resources. All our business schools and the professionals we meet after we leave school will talk to you about networking, the loans that you'll need from the from the banking system, all of those things. And sometimes, Paul, they're not always available to everyone. So this mindset in this course helps us to get around those barriers. Let's use the first example that I mentioned. Let's say you're in a group where the bank doesn't readily lend you money for your small business. I'm going to talk to you about how to get around that, and how you successfully, if you change your mindset about how you resource your business, you can get around that barrier, and that will not be a reason for you to close the door of your business. Go back to the slide for me for a minute if you can. And so with that, let's go down to 8 weeks. So the curricula is 8 weeks, Paul, but truly, I'm going to ask the participant to join me in a session before the 8 weeks start. And in that session, I'll have to explain to them and help them locate the curriculum, the workbooks, because it's all online. So there's a software online that I would give them permission to. They'll have a username and sign in. They will go online. They will see my course syllabus. They will see information about the program. They will see information in there with the assignments per week. Now, it is somewhat of a gentleman course. I said in the beginning, I understand that I've got working people. I've got people in college. I got folks outside of college. I've got people who just curious and wanting to understand how to start a business. So you're not going to have the workload that you would have in a college course, for an example. Most of those preparation sessions before the nightly session or the whatever time we decide for the course session when the group meets is probably 45 minutes to an hour. Mostly some light reading, and then you will view some vignettes. Within those vignettes, we have a core of entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs that have adopted this mindset, and they are talking to participants throughout the course about how to change their mindset in order for them to be successful. And I'll give one example before we go into the schedule too much. There's a couple that will come on and talk to them. It's a father and daughter, and they started a company with $500. That company today makes more than $6 million. And these are the kind of people that are going to come in our session via a vignette. It's a recorded session, just like, kind of what we're doing here. That's going to take the time to talk to participants about this very thing, Paul. Know stuff, how did I go from $500 to creating a business that's generating $6 million? And so throughout the vignette, throughout the course, there will be assignments prior to class, and some of this will come in during the class session. But that is available to participants so that they can have the full understanding and what needs to be shifted to be successful. So the very first week, in that first 2-hour session that we're going to have, we're going to talk about the power of choice. Paul, what we're talking about there is business people, entrepreneurs have to realize that they have the ability to make choices about their businesses and not be pushed into a corner to do what I call groupthink, right? And so we'll spend a whole week talking about that, talking about ways to help entrepreneurs change their mindset, enable conscious choices rather than being pushed into circumstances to make a decision about your business. Now, why is that critical? Because most small businesses don't have a large resource pool. So every decision you make is critical, and you can't waste a resource. So we'll talk about how that happens in that first week. The second week, recognizing opportunities. Again, Paul, one of the things that is a red herring for a small business is you don't have the luxury of having the amount of opportunities that maybe an established larger company or a firm may have. So entrepreneurs mindset for individuals participating in this course, we're focused on helping you to see problems as opportunity. Most businesses see a problem not as an opportunity, but they see it as a hindrance. We're going to change to help folks understand that a problem can be an opportunity. And I want to spend a few minutes explaining what I mean by that. Let's say, Paul, that I'm in a business, in this business of, like I am in the human resource business. And you remember when COVID-19 hit? Well, guess what? There was not a lot of opportunity to do development training, right? Most businesses will see that as a problem. What I'm teaching and what we're teaching folks in this course to do is not to recognize that as a problem. You look at that problem and turn it into a business opportunity. Because if people can't develop, there is a problem somewhere in that scenario, in that concept. And then we're looking for whatever that problem is, finding a solution, and then finding the audience that will pay for that solution. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the course. And then the third week, we talk about and focus on helping folks understand that whatever ideas you're developing, you must turn those ideas into action. You ever seen the guy that just kind of wring his hand? He have a lot of great ideas, but he or she never goes anywhere with it.
Yes.
Well, we're going to change the mindset for the folks in this course. If you have an idea, it's not just an idea. You have to turn that into an action. That action helps to improve your business. That action generate resources for your business. That action will help you to identify additional clients for your business. So we'll talk about those things in week 3. And then week 4, pursuit of knowledge. An entrepreneur mindset is self-directed, understanding the power of knowledge combined with effort and the value of lifelong learning to achieve one's goal. And Paul, in essence, what we're saying there is, you can never get comfortable once you start the business and the business is doing very well. One of the caution that we're going to talk about is if you don't start to think about other ways to improve that business, you will go dormant. You will close those doors, even if it's after 15 or 20 years. You'll close those doors if you can't have the mindset that you have to be a continuous learner in that area, in that field, in order to keep maintain your success with your business. And so we'll spend a lot of time talking about that in week 4. And then week 5 is usually the most interesting week for the participant, in that we're going to talk to you about creating wealth with your business. And we'll go through one of the things that we spend a lot of time with, especially minority-owned small businesses, we got to spend some time talking to you about how to resource your business. You may not be able to go down to the local bank and get the kinds of monies that you might need or you might think you need to keep your doors open and your business viable. So we're going to talk to you about ways to generate ideas to help you create wealth in your business. Week 6, building your brand. This one is most critical, Paul, in that if you're not purposeful about branding your organization, you will at some point lose good customers who are wanting to support you, but your branding is wrong. And let's spend a minute talking about that a little bit. I'm going to convince participants before they leave the course that while you are the business owner, the most important person to your business are your customers. And if that's a true statement, then you have to brand the business based on the customers you want and have. And so we'll talk about that in week 6, and the importance of branding. Another example is, whatever you do, if I'm a human resource business and I'm sloppy, you come to me to help you hire folks, and I don't do proper job position, I don't do announcement properly, I don't help you do interviews properly, I don't do the appropriate background check on people so that you get the kind of employees you need. It won't be long before I put myself in a situation where I'm branded in a negative way. We'll talk to you about branding that organization in a positive way so that you are able to keep that organization moving forward. And then in week 7, creating a community. This is important. You might remember me mentioning in the beginning that I have as a part of this program, access to several entrepreneurs who have adopted this mindset and created their businesses and are running businesses now that are multi-million-dollar businesses. Well, they're a part of your community because they're dedicated to this program, and participants of this program will have access to these individuals. Now, that's one group of folks that's in the community that you need to create. The other people in the community are people with similar businesses. There's a lot of energy lately. I think it's fair to say in the last maybe 5 to 10 years of minority businesses linking with each other to help each other understand what they're doing and supporting each other. So that's a creation in the community that we want to talk about and help with. And then there are people, for an example, you may have a business that you are not the expert in that field, or you may not have that skill. So we want people in your community that's outside of your business that have a skill that will be supportive of your business. So we'll be on a search to find those kind of folks and put these people in your Rolodex, and then these are people that you meet with constantly, so that you are helping you to maintain your business. And then the last one, in week 8, we'll spend time talking about the power of persistency. This is where we hope to convince you never to close the door of that business and figure out ways how to help you work hard to persevere when you're running into obstacles. Because quite frankly, Paul, it's just the truth. I mean, when you open the doors, you will have periods of time when you're doing very well. There will be times when the business is not doing as well. There will be time when you're not doing any business at all. But those who are successful with businesses don't give up at that point. They do what we call in this course, learn to pivot. And what I mean by pivoting is, if I'm a human resource business and it's not going well in the human resource field for COVID-19, for an example, then you pivot to something else that's needed during a COVID-19 environment. Who says that the only thing I can do is human resources? That's the mindset that we're going to change. Why would anyone think that because I'm a human resource business, I'm a general construction business, I'm even a medical company? Why is it that you should accept the idea that you cannot pivot to something else if an opportunity comes your way? You remember me saying earlier that in this course we teach people how to make problems an opportunity and not an issue. So that's what we'll talk about in week 8. Paul, can you bring us back into focus now?
Yes, sir. Okay, we're running short on time, Dr.
Okay,
Green.
we'll speed it up for you.
Now go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. We'll
You got
speed
a
it up
couple
for you.
minutes to end it out.
Close it out.
Yes, sir. Go
Okay.
ahead.
And so, okay, so in a nutshell, that's the 8 weeks. On that slide as well is a link to my website where you can go and not only read about the history of this concept and this program. I don't know if you can bring it up a little bit, Paul, but at the very last bullet up at the top there, to register, if you go to rjrdac.com, click on the IHEP link, you get to view the course description. It'll tell you about the schedule that we just talked about, and also tell you how to register for this course. So what do I have to say in a closing word based on what we've been talking about? Paul, my emphasis is very simple. I want to help ordinary people do extraordinary things for their community. That is, finding problems in those communities, providing resolution to those problems, and in the end, I'm helping them to generate resource. Because if you can identify a problem, you can offer a solution that people want, that will generate income for you. That's your business plan in a nutshell. And we'll talk to you about in the course how to to not only develop that plan, but how to guard and protect it.
Okay,
Paul, that's
Dr.
all I
Green,
have.
thank you for coming on the show. And I want you to come back before, okay, the classes is going to start on the 1st, January the 15th.
Yes, sir.
Okay, January 15th
Now,
of
Paul, let me
2022.
make this clear too. Now, let me make this clear. That's one session, but I usually start a new session every 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I'll put out on the and when you get on the website, you will see schedules in addition to this. I was focused on this schedule because this is the next one coming up. Mm-hmm. But every 2 weeks, I usually start a new class.
Okay.
So there's plenty opportunity. At least four classes during the year.
Okay. So, Dr. Green, I hope you come back prior to the 15th so we can talk some more and get some questions from the audience to you so that you can be able to answer. You can email me some questions at paulmbrown01@yahoo.com or Dr. Green at what's your
rjrdac@gmail.com. So I'll say it again, rjrdac@gmail.com.
Okay, send us some questions. We can answer your questions before this program starts up. Thank you, Dr. Green. Thank you, audience, for watching the show, and you be encouraged. Thank you.